Hey book lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books and Me. I'm back with another wrap up, and I've got 15 books to talk about in this video. Half of them are rereads, so I think I can get through it pretty quickly, but let's just get into it. This will probably be my final single wrap up video for the year. I'm planning on doing a big wrap up video for the end of the year at the end of the month. So yeah, let's just dive right in. So first we have Edge of Glory by Megan Vernon. This is the first book in the Friendship Texas series, which is a companion novel series. So we follow our character Leah, who is working at her family's Italian restaurant. Yeah, her family's Italian restaurant. She's got very strict Italian, she's got very strict Italian parents, and she is serving one night, and turns out she's serving Jay Morningstar, who is a professional Olympic swimmer. He's in town with the rest of his team, staying at their coach's house, and she has fancied him for a couple of years now. Got a big old poster of him up on her wall, and she cannot believe like he's in the restaurant, and she kind of has a bit of a crush on him, and he actually asks her out, which she cannot believe. Like, she's just this regular you know, girl from the country kind of thing, and here is this big time Olympian who could have any girl he wants asking her out, and they embark on this relationship, which is a little bit difficult because Leah kind of isn't allowed to have relationships. Like, her parents don't really want her to have a relationship, and she still just can't deal with the fact that Jay wants her. And so between like her family and everything she's dealing with her family, and just that they're quite strict on her, and she just wants to get out and be her own person, but they're kind of not allowing her, and that Jay is very much in the media, and you know, like if he goes out and people see him, like he's gonna get flocked by people because they just want to have a picture with him kind of thing. Like, he's quite famous. They have a bit of a rocky start with their relationship, but Leah is quite surprised when her parents give Jay permission to go out with her, and they've got a really cute relationship. It's just a really fun new adult contemporary. It was quite cute. I really liked them as a couple. It's been so long since I've read it that I've kind of forgotten what happened. But we also get introduced to a bunch of other characters that feature in the rest of the book, so I'm really excited. I think with this series we're following a mix of some of the swim team and then some of Leah's family and her best friend, so I'm really excited to see where this series goes with the rest of the characters. But this was such a cute book, and I seriously loved the ending of this one, and yes, it was really fun. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Sweet Little Lies by Abby Glines, the second book in the Sweet series. This is an iBooks exclusive trilogy, and after the first book I was very excited to see what happened in the second one. So a big secret was revealed at the end of the first one, and so now our main character Bula, I can never know how to say her name, has to sort of deal with that, and she's planning on leaving whatever, I can't even remember what town we're in, leaving town, although she doesn't want to go too far because of her sister Heidi, but she ends up getting help from Jasper's friend Stone, who offers her a place to stay, and she kind of can't believe that he's helping her because he's never been really nice to her. He's kind of ignored her and kind of warned her off about Jasper, and just has been very cold to her, and she's very confused as to why he's helping. He sets her up with a job, and it's quite a really good job, being like a housekeeper for this old lady who, she's kind of got Alzheimer's. She kind of has episodes where she's back in the past, but usually she's quite good. She's very lucid, and she really enjoys it. She really enjoys working for her because she was actually someone really important to Stone growing up. She was like one of the only motherly figures Stone ever had. And lo and behold, soon enough, Bula starts to realize she has feelings for Stone, and maybe that everything Stone's ever done has been because he likes her too, and so they embark on this bit of a relationship. But then Jasper comes in at the end and just reveals a secret that's meant to tear them apart, like the little biatch he is. But I really liked this book. It was a really good sequel to the first. I think it was better, especially now that our characters were established, and I couldn't believe the plot twist that Abby gave us at the end. I was there was a build up to obviously the end of the book that you knew something was going to go down, and I wasn't expecting the reveal we got, which was crazy, but it led on really well to the second book, so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read is Saw, A Rebirth by Eric Lieb. This is a little comic that came out before Saw 2. It was to help promote Saw 2, and it is Jigsaw's backstory, John Kramer's backstory as to why he became Jigsaw. Unfortunately, everything in this is pretty much overridden by the events of Saw 4 and the backstory we get in that, which I honestly prefer. But this was really interesting. The artwork's quite cool as well. And overall, like, the story is, his backstory is similar, but they just sort of altered it quite a lot in the fourth movie. But if you're a Saw fan, I definitely recommend getting your hands on this because it is quite a good addition to any Saw fans collection. And I gave this, I think it was 4 out of 5 stars. It was good, but I do prefer the story we ended up getting. While it was a good story, I would have been happy if this was John Kramer's backstory. I really much preferred what we got to see in the movie. Then I read Naughty Boss by Whitney G. This is the first book in the Steamy Coffee collection. This is actually a novella, which I didn't realize until I'd finished reading it and I went to add it to my read shelf on Goodreads. I was kind of bummed that it was a novella because we sped through everything and I wanted more of a build-up. But at the same time, novella-wise, I thought it was really, really good. We follow our main character, whose name I cannot remember, who doesn't like her boss, Michael. I think she's, what is she? She's the assistant. So the thing is, I've read 2 Whitney books and I can't remember what happened. Yeah, she doesn't like her boss and she's emailing her best friend like about her boss and all the crappy things he's done and the shit he's putting her through and making her do, you know. Oh yeah, like if she's like a minute late for a meeting, she'll like get an email about it. Like, he's very strict and for like stupidest things. So she's emailing her best friend about it, or they kind of have this running series where they email each other back and forth about her boss. One day she accidentally sends that email to her boss, and it's like one that she, you know, says that she says some pretty harsh things about him, and he finally learns about it. And so they end up sort of hooking up and having this really weird relationship. And it was a good read. It was a good read. I'm a bit bummed that it was a novella because I feel like it had so much potential to be an actual novel. We kind of gloss over time periods. We'll have like a section where it's like, we'll have like a couple of chapters or like little chapter bits, and then we'll have like 2 months later kind of thing. I do wish it was a bit longer, but I thought it was really good. I hadn't read anything by Whitney before, and I think she's a really good author, especially if you do like more adult romances. Then I read Miss Fix-It by Emma Hart. This, on the day it came out at the end of October, and I'd never read anything by Emma before, but this one was really, really good. We follow Kaylee, who has taken over her dad's handyman business, and she's had to deal with most of her like adult life of people being shocked when she turns up at the job and she's actually a woman, because they think it's her father, especially because they have the same initials, and she signs off as Kay, whatever her last name is. But she's kind of gotten used to that, especially within her town. But then Bradley Cooper arrives, moves into town with his twin children, boy and a girl, asking for her to do up his kids' bedrooms because they're like a mess. And he's initially, again, shocked that a woman turns up, but he's cool with it. She gets to work, and as they're working together, because he's still in the house, he's yet to actually go to his new job, he's got time to settle in and everything like that. They begin to sort of have this bit of a friendship. They connect, and Kaylee has never wanted kids, and here she is now surrounded by these 2 little terrors who are really cute, kind of crazy, but who have their both own personalities, and she's kind of like really enjoying hanging out with them. And then one day Brantley calls her to say that he cannot leave the office and he doesn't have anyone to pick up the kids from their daycare, and they'd be able to stay longer if the woman that they were staying with didn't actually have somewhere else to go, otherwise they'd be cool. And so Kaylee immediately says yes, and then she begins to regret it afterwards because she's like, holy crap, like what am I meant to do with these kids for the evening kind of thing. But the more they sort of hang out together outside of her working in the house, the more they connect. And Kaylee has always had this rule that she didn't want to mix business with pleasure. She didn't want to hook up with her clients because and it was kind of a rule that her dad had said as well, because her dad had actually hooked up with her stepmom while they were working. Like her mum had actually died, so it wasn't like he was cheating or anything, but they hooked up while he was working for her, and Kaylee had only ever thought that they'd gotten together after the job was done, but turned out they hadn't. And so Kaylee is trying to just deal with the feelings she has for Brantley and whether or not she can come into their lives and come into this family. Like, it's not just Brantley she has to consider in this, it has to be the two kids as well. And this book was so cute, and I really liked it. I really like Kaylee, I really like Brantley, and I think this story was so good. I really recommend it if you like adult contemporary romances, because it was so good. And it was the first book I'd read by Emma, so I didn't know what to expect going in, but I really liked Emma's writing style. I think she's kind of like the more adult version of Abby Glines, which I like. But I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this one. Then I read 30-Day Boyfriend by Whitney G. This is a standalone book, and it is essentially that we have a main character who is a CEO's assistant, and she's really good at her job. They kind of have a bit of a tense relationship. They are on really good terms with one another, but then some days they're not. It's kind of similar to what I'd mentioned in the previous Whitney G book. But our Mr. Wolf, I can't remember his name, I've read these books too long ago, he is trying to make a deal with a company. But the CEO of that company who's trying to sell will only sell to someone who is a family man, who has a fiance, who has a wife, who has kids, who is a family orientated man. Our CEO is not, and so he is planning on finding a woman that he can pretend to be engaged to for a month to settle the deal. And they interview a ton of people, but none of them fit the bill. They didn't read any of like the work material about of who this guy was and his favorite things, but because our main character, whatever her name is, has worked in such close quarters with our CEO for years now, she knows him like the back of her hand, and so she is picked to be it for the fiance. The only problem is both of them have kind of had feelings for one another in the past, but nothing has ever happened, nothing is going to happen. They don't really like each other in some sense, so they go off. They have 30 days of being together in order to settle this deal, and they're going to go and stay with our Mr. CEO's family. And they kind of, because they're in close quarters and they're kind of talking about things that they wouldn't necessarily talk about in the office, they kind of connect a little bit more and sort of open themselves up to their feelings that they've been having, and it's really cute. And there's a really cute little reveal, I'm not going to spoil it, near the end of the story, when you just realize how long this has been going on for. And it was really cute. I really liked this one again as well. I give this 4 out of 5 stars. Whitney's a really great author, and I can't wait to read more books by her. But this was really cute. You do have to just read it to see like the little reveal we get into it, because our main character, she's been trying to quit for a long time, but she's had, I think it was a 4-year contract she has to go. She has to work for 4 years, like she can't get out of her contract, and I think she's already done 2. Yeah, she's done 2 already, and she's been trying to get out of it, and you gotta read it. Then I read the first 2 books in the Burke Brothers series by Emma Hart. This is very much, if you love Abby Glines, read this series. So the Burke Brothers. So the Burke Brothers are these 4 brothers who are also rock stars. They're from a small town in, I think it was Alabama. And they've been on tour, and they return home. They're very much a boy band. They're kind of like One Direction kind of thing. They return home, and we firstly are following our younger brother Connor Burke, who had his high school sweetheart Sophie Callan, who mysteriously just left one day without a goodbye, without an explanation of where she was. And Connor's been heartbroken ever since, because they were going to be together forever kind of thing. When the brothers return, Connor finds out that Sophie is back in town for the first time in nearly 3 years, because Sophie's father had recently Sophie's father had recently passed away. She's come back to sort of deal with the house. She's needed somewhere to live for the time being, and deciding whether she wants to move back and live in this house or if she just wants to sell it and move on and go somewhere else. And she's got a secret, a daughter, and Connor finds out, and it's the reason why she ran away, and it's Connor's, and so it's their relationship trying to get back, trying to get some sort of resolution to everything, and dealing with 2 years worth of secrets and lies. And I really liked this. Again, I'm just a sucker for contemporaries like this, and as I said, it's on the same wavelength as Abby Glines' books, so of course I really enjoyed it. But I really liked this book. It was really cute, very emotional, but enjoyable nonetheless. Then the second book is following Tate Burke, who is very much kind of the outsider of the Burke Brothers kind of thing. I don't really know how to explain him, but we pick up about 2 weeks after the events of the first book, and they're going back on tour. The first book was during their tour break, so now they're back on tour, and they're looking for a new PA because the previous one has gone off to have a baby, and they hire Ella Dawson, who really knows nothing about what it's like to be on the road with a bunch of rock stars, but she's escaping some horrific stuff that have happened to her in her past. I feel like I can say what it is. She was in a very abusive relationship, and she was days before she was about to walk down the aisle, and she finally got up the courage to leave. And I tell you what, I was crying within the first 2 pages of this book. Just honestly everything to do with Ella in this book, and her with this, getting over this abusive relationship. Oh my god, it literally broke my heart. I've never read a book that focused quite heavily on someone having been in a very abusive relationship, and it was something. It was so emotional, but to see that in contrast of how Tate was around her, I really loved their development, the development of their relationship, and just I loved this book. I thought the first book was amazing, but I really liked this one. It's dealing with them being on tour and Tate and Ella having feelings for one another, but Tate not wanting to act on anything because it's just him. He's kind of dealt with things in the past and doesn't want scandal coming out anymore. But then he learns about Ella and what she's run from, and the fact that her ex-fiance would actually come after them and come after her to get her back. Like, it's really sweet, really, about how this relationship develops and everything. And I thought it was really good. And we get to see more of Sophie and Connor, which is really good. And I can't wait to continue the rest of this series because all the brothers are really interesting. And we also get a book. The final book in this series is actually from their sister's perspective. So I'm really excited for this. But this was another great book. I think I gave both of these books 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Sweet Little Memories by Abby Glines. This is the third and final book in the Sweet trilogy, and this one wrapped up the trilogy, obviously, after Bula finds out this secret about Stone, and it's her dealing with that. But at the same time, so while they're dealing with this big secret, or just this event in Stone's life that he's trying to find a resolution to, Bula finds out something about herself. Can't really tell Stone because of things he's said, so she decides to go on the run, and then it ends really sweetly. And obviously it's a third book in a series. I don't want to tell you guys too much, but if you love Abby, read it. If you love contemporary romance, if you love new adult, read it. I loved it. I thought it was a really great ending. I wish it was a little bit longer. I hope that Abby turns around and writes books for some of the other characters that we get to meet in this series, because they're quite interesting and I'd love to see more books about them. But yes. So then finally, the last lot of books I've read have been rereads, so I'm just going to gloss over them. I reread Rush Too Far, Never Too Far, Forever Too Far, Twisted Perfection, Simple Perfection, and One More Chance by Abby Glines. The first books books 2 to 7 of the Rosemary Beach series. I'm currently in the middle of One More Chance. I wasn't planning on rereading all of the series. I was just going to reread the Too Far part of the series, but I kept going. I definitely see myself going to be able to reread. I need to finish reading One More Chance. I really want to then read You Were Mine, and then When I'm Gone and When You're Back, and Cura is Emily. I'm probably going to end up rereading half the series, or most of the series. Fun fact, when I finished reading Never Too Far and I logged it into my Goodreads as a reread, it was exactly a year to the day that I had read it for the first time. I'm definitely going to finish off the year by finishing off this series, which is really weird because I read One More Chance on New Year's Day this year, and I'm probably going to have most of the series finished. Like I read the bulk of this series this year and I'm rereading it again. But I'm loving it. I love this series so much. I've given all these books between 4 and 5 stars. So check out my reviews for all these. They're all up on my blog if you want to know more about them. But I highly, highly recommend it. So that is it for this wrap up. As I said, that was a lot of books that I've read. But I'm going to be doing a hopefully yearly wrap up. I don't know how I'm going to film it. Let me know what you sort of want to see as the final video of my year wrap up wise. Do you want me to just sort of go through all the books I've read this year, maybe star ratings for them? I don't really know. I definitely recommend. I haven't in regards to all these books, I haven't written reviews for all of them yet, but I will link below to the reviews I have written, so check them out. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are of them, and I will see you guys next week with my Christmas recommendations video. Bye!